I'm fortunate to spend Sundays with Tony Dungy and Rodney Harrison watching football, along with Peter King and Mike Florio and Scott Pioli, the former Patriots executive. And Tony and I spent a lot of time talking about the USC job yesterday after we found out what happened with Lane Kiffin. And Tony's son plays at Oregon. Of course, you've been around Chip Kelly. And, you know, I even heard Chip Kelly's name coming up. Could you see Chip Kelly bailing after 1 year in Philadelphia?
No, I couldn't. Just knowing Chip, he's too determined for that. His first game at Oregon was the LeGarrette Blount punch, and everything's terrible, and he's not going to back down from a challenge. So he's going to see this through. I'm not sure what USC does. You need a dynamic personality. In my opinion, you need somebody who's been a head coach before. You need somebody to galvanize that program again.
But can you take somebody from the NFL and put them into college if they haven't coached in college?
I don't think so. People used to ask me all the time, hey, why don't you go? You'd be great for this job or that job. I don't know college football. I don't know the rules. I don't know how you recruit, those kind of things, how you even practice with going to class and different things. So it's not as easy as it sounds. I'll just get this guy who's got this fantastic mind, and he'll come in and put it in a college football situation. It doesn't work that way.
You've known Lane Kiffin a long time. Monty Kiffin, of course, when you were in Tampa. And I just never understood this. Lane Kiffin is the next Lombardi here. I know he lacks personality, but I didn't know X's and O's if he's actually a good coach who just doesn't have a great personality.
Well, I think Lane knows football. He's one of those guys who was always around. He was always around the office. He studied it. He worked for some really, really good people. I think he's a sharp guy. I just am not sure. Again, to me, you're USC. I'm getting Nick Saban or Chip Kelly or I can get anybody I want. That's the type of personality I'm going for.
Well, what I thought was Mike Garrett brought in Lane Kiffin to fall on the sword. Okay, we're going to go through this probationary period. I can bring you in. Do you buy that?
I don't think so. I think you can still win. Teams that have been on probation win.
But would somebody have taken that job? It's like Bill O'Brien at Penn State. Do you take that job if you know already what the sanctions are, or you get there and then all of a sudden you're sanctioned?
I think you still take it. You understand, hey, we're going to lose some scholarships. We'll have some problems, but this is USC. We got players. DeAnthony Thomas should be at USC right now.
Let me let you be Pat Hayden. Money's not an issue. Tell me the right guy, in your opinion, for USC.
You've hit him. Nick Saban, Chip Kelly, somebody who
John Gruden?
John Gruden would be a great name. John Gruden knows college football. He understands how to win, and he's going to put a dynamic offense out there. I think that'd be a great name.
But if you're Gruden, would you leave that cushy job in the Monday Night Football booth to coach USC?
No, I think his job's a better job than I'm learning this TV business. It's not a bad job.
Yeah, it doesn't feel bad on Monday morning now the way it used to.
You go to the barbershop, they're not asking me about Josh Freeman. Well, they're asking me, but I don't have to answer.
All right, we'll get to the Tampa situation here because you live in Tampa, and this is a mess, and it's going to cost Greg Schiano his job. I want to start with Denver because you've said this to me the last 2 weeks, that wait till Peyton gets to November. If you think he's good now, wait till Peyton Manning gets to November. What will be the difference in a month from now?
Well, here's three things with Peyton. Last year, he thought he could play. He got all the doctors saying, you're going to be okay, but he didn't know for sure. He didn't know he could take a hit, all those kind of things. He went through a year. He's fine physically, so he was going to be a lot better this year than last year just with that. The second thing with Peyton, he has to know his guys. He's got to be able to read the body language. He's got to understand what they're seeing when they see a certain defense, how they're going to break. So repetition and throwing balls to him. He took them all to Duke and threw, and they got some things done, but it's still not the same as going against defenses. Now he's had this training camp in 4 or 5 weeks. He still doesn't know Julius Thomas the way he wants to know him. He doesn't know Welker the way he wants to know him. But give him 6 more weeks of practice with those guys, the repetition, they're going to be even better.
Peter King brought this up. Now, this was fun last night. We're watching the first half Patriots game, and Peter comes into our green room, and he starts talking about which team offensively, he's gushing over this year's Broncos.
The best group that Peyton's ever had. He's got all these skill position players. That's why they're doing so well.
And Tony doesn't raise his voice very often, but all of a sudden he turned to Peter and he said, so this team's better than the 2005 Colts I had, and then you started reeling off the names here.
Yes. Do you want Reggie Wayne or Eric Decker? I'm sorry, but I want Reggie Wayne. Do you want Demaryius Thomas or Marvin Harrison? I want Marvin Harrison. Do you want Dallas Clark or Julius Thomas? Do you want Edgerrin James or Ronnie Hillman? Don't tell me this is the best players Peyton's ever been around. These are some good players, but that group, Brandon Stokely, we had 3,000-yard, 10-touchdown receivers, and Edgerrin James.
Had 1,500 yards.
Dallas Clark and Marcus Pollard. Dallas Clark was a backup tight end then. We had some talent.
Okay, but Peyton then to Peyton now.
I think he's about the same. And the thing that I saw in the 04, 49 touchdowns, 05 with 13 wins in a row, he's still pushing guys the same way. Mondays, our practices were supposed to be for the second-team guys who didn't play. But he'd always come to me, right before we went out, I just need 10 plays. I didn't get this one to Marvin right. We got to get this. I got to run this route with Dallas. Jim Sorgi still never got to practice on Mondays.
Why didn't you let Jim Sorgi in games, Tony?
We did. When we had things locked up.
No, Peyton never wanted to come out of a game.
He didn't. He wouldn't come out. But when we got things locked up, then I'd say, okay,
Jim Sorgi.
Jim needs to play these last 2 games of the year, and he'd go out there and do pretty well.
Who does more with less, Brady or Peyton?
Well, I think you have to look at Brady and what they've done. They've got a great system. They believe in what they do, and the thing about them is if they don't have receivers, they'll run the ball. If it's tight ends, I'll utilize them. If my tight ends are gone, I'll throw the receivers. They do more with different types of game plans. With Peyton, at least what has happened is certain types of guys thrive with him, and the GMs just get those guys for him, and then it's great.
Tony Dungy joining us in our New York City Man Cave here on the Dan Patrick Show. But it still comes back to this, and Rodney Harrison brought this up. Peyton can't go through this career with only one Super Bowl. You're not going to be recognized as the greatest quarterback of all time.
No, they needed to win that one against New Orleans or win one here, and I think that doing it that way and winning in 2 different organizations that'll do it, and I think they've got a great chance to win one.
But what is it about him that his playoff record is 8-9, I think?
Yeah, and it's not necessarily him. I mean, you look at we look at Elway, and you win these last 2, and it's great, and that changes everybody's perception. Brett Favre had a great career, won 1 Super Bowl.
Well, who do you think is better than Peyton Manning, quarterbacks all time?
I would not take anybody.
No one.
Over Peyton Manning.
Okay, what if a game is on the line postseason?
That's still who I want.
Really?
Yeah. Yep.
If you weren't his coach.
Now, if I couldn't have Peyton, who do I want? John Elway.
Yeah, I think Elway's best quarterback of all time. But
he gave me a lot of sleepless nights.
Yeah.
So.
Got a busy show here in the New York City Man Cave. Always great to see Tony Dungy from Football Night in America joining us in the Man Cave. You got fired by Tampa, and we're talking about Lane Kiffin here. What is that feeling like when you get fired?
It's a bad feeling, especially when you don't see it coming. And I don't know where Lane was, but I know for me, there's a lot of rumors swirling. My last year there, I talked to my bosses, and we're fine. We're moving forward, moving ahead. Just win. And then when they come in and say, "Hey, it's over," it hurts because you pour your whole life into it. You want to win, and you're not planning for failure, and it does hurt.
But did you know that Gruden was coming in?
No, as a matter of fact, he wasn't. Bill Parcells was coming in, and then the deal fell through. But we were going to Philadelphia for a playoff game, and there's a headline in the paper that says, if the Bucs lose, Dungy will be fired. And so I'm going to go to the front of the plane and ask the owners about this. Where did this come from? No owners on the plane.
Uh-oh.
So that's not a good sign.
And when did you find out Parcells was in the mix?
I didn't know that till later on.
Okay.
But that was the deal. It was all going to be set. He was going to come in and take over, and then something didn't go right, and he didn't, and then they had a search and end up with John, which was a good hire for him.
But how did it feel? You're watching your Buccaneers dominate the Raiders to win the Super Bowl.
That was a tough one. You kind of feel like that's your goal. You want to get to the Super Bowl. You want to have the team, recapture the city, which we did. We just didn't take that next step, and then they played great that year and won it. And it is. It's a kind of an empty feeling not being there.
Who's worse, the Giants or the Steelers?
Wow. The Steelers has been more disappointing, I think, just to see what has happened to that defense.
But isn't it amazing? We're a month in and I'm asking that question.
Yeah.
Did you ever think I'd be asking about the Giants or the
No,
Steelers?
no.
They're both 0-4.
Never thought they would play that way where they're turning the ball over. They're not stopping people on defense. The Steelers have not forced a takeaway all year.
Amazing.
That with Troy Polamalu and Ryan Clark and Lamar Woodley and Lawrence Timmons, you just wouldn't think you could go 4 games without forcing a turnover.
And here are the Giants at 0-4, losing in Kansas City. Now they got Philadelphia coming up. But, you're looking at some of these teams and you're saying, I don't know if Kansas City's a legit 4-0 or, the Steelers are legit 0-4, the Giants. I mean, it's kind of – can you tell now after a month in that these
really
are the teams?
Can. You really can. Teams that are playing with belief, that are taking care of the football and forcing the takeaways – you're going to be a good team, and that's what Kansas City is. They had a bunch of Pro Bowlers last year, but they didn't have it together. They believe in Alex Smith. They believe in Andy Reid. The thing that Andy does wherever he goes, we're not going to turn the ball over. We're going to play smart. We're going to be in every game, and they believe. Now you get that home crowd that's just been waiting in Kansas City, and you get the noise and the energy and the belief. They're a good football team.
I'm looking at these quarterbacks: Jay Cutler, Phillip Rivers, Matt Schaub. Quarterbacks that are good, but don't deliver when they need to. Like they're sort of bunched in there. You get quarterbacks who elevate themselves. Joe Flacco elevated himself. Eventually, it was Drew Brees elevating himself.
I'm going to stop you right there. It's not elevating yourself. It's being able to do in the big games what you do in all the other games.
Okay, but Matt, if I'm a Texan, my question has always been Matt Schaub.
In the big games.
Yes.
Matt Schaub is fine when they're playing Jacksonville.
Yeah.
He's going to play great. Okay, but now you got to play great against Seattle. Okay? And that's what those guys have to do, the Cutlers and the Rivers and the Schaubs. Can you do it? Just play the way you always play in the big game on Sunday night or Monday night or in the playoffs.
If I said Seattle or Denver?
I think Denver has a better team, but Seattle could beat them in a one-game knockout. You might take Seattle. They've got the formula to slow Denver down and beat them. They're physical on defense. They pound you. You'll catch some balls. They'll make you pay for it. Marshawn Lynch, he'll eat up the clock. Russell Wilson is going to be – he's not going to lose his composure if Denver does score some points early. I think it'd be a great matchup. I think Denver has a better team.
I like Seattle. I love those defensive backs are physical. And you can put a pass rush on Peyton. You can run the football. And Russell Wilson, I'm watching Russell Wilson in the fourth quarter and watching Matt Schaub. Yeah. And I'm thinking,
who do I want to have the ball on the last drive?
And there was no question. I want
Russell
Wilson.
And Russell Wilson at the Rose Bowl a couple of years ago. They're playing Oregon. Oregon scoring in 45 seconds, and he's on the sideline. It's okay. We'll get it back. We're going to score. We'll be fine. And he just has that demeanor. They're down 20-3, and he's like, we're going to be fine.
Road.
Yeah, we're going to win this game. And you had the sense that they would.
So what, Tampa, you think you get rid of Josh Freeman? You would cut him?
I think you have to now. It's such a distraction. I never heard of your third quarterback being in the booth.
What happens?
I was like, okay, if Glennon gets hurt, do I call up on the telephone? Okay, you got to get dressed now, Josh?
He was deactivated.
Yes, but he's going to play if the first two quarterbacks get hurt. How do you play from the press box?
So you cut him. You pay him his $6.4 million. I mean, that's a mess.
It's not like, you got the Corvette and you don't like it anymore, so you trade it in. Somebody give you. This is your wife got the $20,000 chandelier, and now she hates it. You just have to take the chandelier down, get another one that she likes, and you're out to your $20,000. You have to move on.
$20,000 chandelier. It's a nice chandelier you got there.
Yeah, but she hates it.
Yeah.
So don't sit there and just have all this tension in the house. And every time you sit at the dining room, I hate this chandelier. You got to move on.
How did Jacksonville get this bad?
That's really a good question because when I was in Indy, we had some battles against them. They were a good, solid, hard-nosed football team. Maurice Jones-Drew, running game and tough defense. And it's disintegrated. And I guess you have to start over. I'm not sure they have the quarterback in place to build around. And defensively, it's just not. Now, if Gus Bradley will get the defense figured out and straightened out, they'll get better, but somehow they've got to fix that offense.
Every year we seem to say this, could a great college team beat the worst team in the NFL?
I still don't think so, but this would be a game you'd pay to see.
Okay, Alabama plays Jacksonville.
It'd be a good game.
You think it'd be a competitive game?
Yeah. They wouldn't beat them, but it'd be a good game.
What if A&M, what if Manziel played against Jacksonville?
Now, that'd be interesting. That he might put up enough points to win.
Before I let you go, this whole NFL Europe with London, they keep, it's a PR campaign with the NFL. And now we got 2 games. Mike Florio reported last night on Football Night in America. We might have 3 games next year in London. Inevitable? We're going to London?
I don't see it. I could see having games over there and maybe even having a game every week, but I don't see having a home team there. Who's going to coach? Who's going to go over there and live all year and
this owner in Jacksonville, he's already got his Premier League team, and I just get feeling that he wants to be this rebel, and I'll take a team over there. I don't know how it works, but I just feel like this is the expansion they want to tap into the European market.
It could be, but I don't see it working very well.
Good to visit with you. Thanks for joining us as always, Tone.
See you next week.
All right, buddy. Safe travels.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.